So, how's it going, Blake?
I'm doing well. How about you, Levi?
Doing well.
Good to hear.
So, this is going to be our new channel, and we are calling it the Brothers Brawl.
Brothers Brawl.
Oh, God. Well, do you want to...
All right, ready? Three, two, one.
The Brothers Brawl.
Well, that was synced on my side, and due to the magic of audio editing, it's going to be synced for this podcast.
Absolutely, it will be. So, this is going to be a new series that is going to be talking about the Historic Brawl format. We're going to be doing both streams of Blake and I playing Historic Brawl, whether that's against each other, against special guests, or against, in the queue against random opponents. And we will be doing this podcast here. And this
fantastic podcast.
Indeed, this glorious piece of ideas that we strung together hastily a couple times ago.
This abomination?
Only if it's a Llanowar abomination.
Oh, Commander.
Yeah. No? I don't think it can be a commander. It's not legendary, I don't think.
That's it. You know what? We are really prepared for this discussion.
Absolutely. So yeah, Blake, tell us about Historic Brawl. What is this new format?
Well, Historic Brawl is a 100-card singleton format, mirrored after the standard Brawl format. So let's slow down here. 100 cards instead of 60 compared to the standard Brawl. So for those of you who are fans of Commander 1-on-1 on Moto, then this may appeal to you. Now, mind you, it is just with the historic cards on Arena. So again, this is an Arena-only format. There are actually cards that are going to be released just for historic. So that includes Historic Brawl as well as historic. So it's just an Arena-only format, and it is 100 cards. So you have a commander, just like if you're playing Commander, Standard Brawl, 1-on-1 Commander. It is going to be a singleton only, so no multiple copies. So just, again, like your 1-on-1 Commander. And it looks to be pretty promising. But there's an actual queue that's going to be dedicated to this now Wizards is launching this. So let's jump into our next discussion here, and let's try to make a couple predictions about the format. And the first kind of question that I have for you, Levi, here is, in terms of the archetypes, or generic archetypes, obviously there's way more complex analysis that can be done on this, but we're talking aggro, mid-range, combo, tempo, and control. Levi, what do you think is going to be the most popular archetype for this 100-card singleton, essentially 1-on-1 commander, but really it's Historic Brawl format?
Before we jump into that, I'm going to take a quick rewind. One more thing I want to say about Historic Brawl is I think that it's very interesting that from Standard Brawl, which is a 60 card, we see a 100 card. I just want to make that clear because in the casual Brawl format, they had it at 60 cards, so I wonder when this change came about that they decided it was going to be a 100 card.
You know, I think in terms of the Historic Brawl being a 100 card, if I'm not mistaken, they actually previewed or had a limited time event a while back on the 100 card Historic Brawl.
Interesting. I didn't know that. I wasn't on for that one, apparently.
You know, it must have been one of those events. They put out quite a few events, you know, the Momir events and all of those kind of fun items. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see why they did 100 versus 60, and if it retains the popularity that this sort of cult following has spawned of Historic Brawl. So, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. To move back to what you were talking about, that I wanted to mention the 100 card, because I think that's going to tie into my answer a bit. So, my answer, my short answer to this question here that we can dive into is, I think we're going to see mid-range, mid-range, and that can come in the form of combo or tempo. I would argue that that's a part of mid-range, or can be argued that that's a part of mid-range, and I think we're going to see a lot of control as well. With 100-card decks, and Historic Brawl notably being a 25-life format instead of the 20-life format that we're seeing with other 100-card singletons like Canadian Highlander and
Regular
the
Highlander.
other ones that are played. Yeah, regular, yeah. I think aggro is going to be a little bit lackluster. That's my initial prediction. I'm hoping people prove me wrong, but if we see aggro decks, I think they're going to operate more like mid-range decks than aggro decks.
Well, that's a really interesting point. I feel like in order to get really aggressive decks, you do need a lot of support in terms of just the sheer number of quality aggressive cards. And I don't know if I would disagree with you there in terms of, does Historic have the quality aggressive cards that can really manifest a solid aggro deck in terms of getting all the way up to 100 cards? Now, obviously, including lands, so really 70-ish cards that are solid aggro items.
I think we'll probably see about 75 played here. Sorry, it'll be like 65 because we're running about 35 lands is the general consensus for 100-card formats usually. 35 to 30 lands.
Yeah. I will say this for the one-on-one commander, it does seem like a fairly aggressive format just looking at the overall top commanders. Now, that being said, going all the way back to, I think even Legacy for one-on-one commander gives you a way bigger card pool than what you have in Historic. So it kind of remains to be seen, but, hopefully time will tell.
Comparing this, I'm gonna switch this over a little bit and compare to some other one-on-one formats because I really want to talk about the differences between what we're gonna see here. So if we look at formats like Canadian Highlander, where we look at formats like this, it is a 100-card list. There is no ban list. It is only cards that have point values, and these point values are continuously changing. This you can have a maximum of up to 10 points. Cards that are pointed are going to be stuff like Moxes, tutors such as Demonic Tutor, Vampiric Tutor, Mystical Tutor. Other cards they deem a little too broken. Birthing Pod is one of them. That's technically considered a tutor, but we don't need to get into that. Stuff like Ancestral Recall is pointed. So it's going to be very interesting because you do see a good amount of aggro in Highlander. Highlander also is notably a 20-life format, and I actually think that part of why aggro is going to be bad is because this is a 25-life format. Winning at 5 and winning at 25 are practically the same things in this format here. And I think that 5 life is going to matter way more than people are expecting here, because that can be, that could be an entire combat step.
I 100% agree.
So
100% agree. I will say, just in terms of the power level and kind of going back to your comment about point system within Highlander, as another note about the actual format, just like Standard Brawl, the queue is going to use the power level of your commander to match you up. Now, what Wizards actually uses in terms of a ranking of power level of commanders is unknown, at least unknown to this podcast. Maybe it's out there. But they're going to attempt to try to match you up with someone who uses a commander level of a similar power, which is interesting, especially with a 100-card format with higher variance than a 60-card format, because a Korvald deck, let's say, versus a Xanathar deck, your Korvald deck could be leagues ahead of the Xanathar deck when you are playing against this individual. But it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, just given the higher level of variance here.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. The other thing is, when I want to play my super janky, commander that they rate as one of the top, 5, and my deck is just garbage because I play nothing but bad cards, as is my right, it'll be really interesting to see if they take into account only commanders or what. So
yeah, that'll be interesting to see. I agree.
Other thing that we're going to see different for specifically aggro is I think a lot of the aggro formats, or a lot of the aggro decks in other formats like Standard Brawl and Commander and Highlander. With Standard Brawl, it's a 60 card deck, and I think Arena has enough support on Standard Brawl to have a decent aggro deck with 60 cards. When we up it to 100, I think we're missing out on like 1-mana spells and creatures that are going to let us get in there. Now we have great cards like Lightning Bolt, right, that are going to be able to help in the aggro burn matchups. I don't know. Lightning Bolt, I don't know if I'd consider it a traditional aggro card, but I think it goes in almost any aggro deck.
Is Lightning Bolt going to be legal in Historic Brawl?
I believe that Lightning Bolt is going to be legal in Historic Brawl. It's currently legal in the Casual Brawl, and I don't think Historic Brawl has a ban list right now. I don't think it's operating off of the same historic ban list from my knowledge, because I think that with the singleton, it's a lot harder to break stuff like Lightning Bolt, right?
That's true. That's true. Well, I wonder if some of these other cards that were banned in regular Historic, I mean, they had some pretty interesting and powerful cards. Swords to Plowshares, I think, was printed in Strixhaven Mystical Archives. I would love to see that in Singleton, but that also means I gotta stock up on my wild cards, Levi.
Yeah, I know. I've been hoarding them since I heard about the release of this format.
You're smarter than I am.
Yeah. To wrap up my aggro discussion here, I think it's going to be very interesting because I don't think we're going to see enough impactful 1, 2, and even 3 drops to make a good aggro deck. I think that we're going to have to push into the 4s and 5s to see like decent stuff, and I don't think we're going to have enough quantity of 1, 2 drops to make this possible. So that's my prediction. I think we're going to see mid-range and combo and tempo and control kind of lead this matchup and leave aggro in the dust, just because we're not going to have enough support here yet.
Sure. Well, that kind of leads into my next point and discussion here, talking about Historic Horizons, aka Jumpstart Historic Horizons, which is quite a long title. And what I want to talk about with Jumpstart Historic Horizons is, number one, the power level and what your feeling is on how this is going to shape this new format that they're releasing alongside of it, or I should say newly supported format. Let's jump right in here. What do you think of the power level of Historic Horizons in terms of what it's going to introduce to the Historic and Historic Brawl format? Okay,
bit of a hot take here. I don't actually think this is going to be that powerful.
Wow.
So I've looked at some of the cards. I think it's interesting because I think, like a lot of Magic sets, I think there's going to be maybe 10 choice cards that really like shake up the game. Mm-hmm. But I think overall that this set is probably not as impactful as stuff like we've seen historic anthologies, right? I think this set is going to be akin to another historic anthology, because in this card pool here, I don't think we see enough impactful cards, right?
That's a spicy take.
Yeah.
I'm going to need some milk with that hot take here.
To elaborate on my hot take so people don't call me dumb on the internet, because that never happens, I want to say that I think this is probably going to up the variance more, right? I think we're going to see more decks become good. Like, more decks become playable, rather than this defining a meta, right? Like, I don't think you're going to only have to have cards from Jumpstart Historic Horizons, or whatever the heck they're calling it.
Just helps with the diversity?
I think it's just going to help with the diversity, and I think that's Wizards' plan. Now, I can easily see this plan backfiring and this being the only relevant set. But yeah, the other weird thing, and I'm going to say this, and this is probably going to get me in trouble with Wizards of the Coast, but they're really turning this game into Hearthstone, aren't they?
That's not a hot take. I'd say that's a very lukewarm, if not cold take.
That's fair. With stuff like Davriel's Soul Broker and his -2, which is accept one of Davriel's offers, then accept one of Davriel's conditions, I'm from playing some very, very light Hearthstone, this is pretty much like Kazakis. If any of you Hearthstone players are out here want to at me on my pronunciation and my take on this.
Oh, we forgot to do our disclaimer that, our pronunciations are not to be trusted.
Correct. where you kind of, because Akkus was a card in Hearthstone where you kind of get to build your own effects, and I think Davriel is a little bit opposite of that, where you get to pick a benefit and pick a disbenefit, but it seems like definitely a little bit of a Hearthstone mechanic, which I don't know if I'm hugely like that, because I play Magic for it to be Magic, not for it to be Hearthstone. So that's just a bit of a cold take.
You know, that's a take that's been given, and I understand where you're coming from for sure. So, folks, if you like the video, like, subscribe, smash that bell, do a little dance.
Thanks for tuning in to the Brothers Brawl.